हे गाइस, स्वागत है आप सबका मेरे चैनल सुनो कहानी में वेयर वी वर रीडिंग रेड फ्लैग्स एंड द रिश्तास बाय राधिका अग्रवाल, जिसमें से कि हमने 8 चैप्टर पढ़ लिए हैं, अपलोडेड भी है, सो यू कैन गो एंड वॉच और लिसन वट एवर यू वांट. सो टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू रीड चैप्टर 9, ऑल इन अ डेज वर्क. Bollywood has taught me that a date at a carnival is a classic love story waiting to happen, which is why I showed up in a high spirits, ready for my personal SRK to win me a chalte chalte stuffed dog or buy me bangles while professing his love to me kabhi khushi kabhi gum style. What I did not know was that fairs are not quite as exciting without dream sequence with background dancers and, well, the right guy. I had also failed to account for the possible heart stroke I might suffer from being outdoors in the dead of the afternoon. My oversized straw hat was trying its best to shield me from the angry sun right above us, but there was only so much it could do. I told you we should not come in the evening, Gaurav said as he watched me tap in the sweat beads forming on my forehead with a wet wipe. Gaurav was my second date of the day. I had met a guy from brunch earlier and I was meeting another one for a theater play later in the evening. Some people would call packing 3 dates in a day overkill. I call it time management. Now that my Sundays were booked for decorating V's new boutique, I essentially only had 1 day per week to find myself a boyfriend. So naturally, I narrowed down my best options over the course of the week to schedule back-to-back Saturdays dates, a dating marathon, if you will. One of these guys, I had convinced myself, would be the one. I had not had any luck with the brunch date, who turned out to be so painfully dumb in person that I had to wonder if I had been chatting with someone else over text. I truly believed I could have managed a more engaging conversation with the housefly Gaurav. I realized a few minutes into our date fell on the opposite end of the intellectual spectrum. He was well spoken, wore Harry Potter style round glass, and talked like a sociology topper from college, bringing up Marxism every chance he got. Why don't we get some ice cream to cool down a bit? I said, pointing to a desert stall to our right. The Fall Fest was taking place in one of the larger ground of Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. Most of the area was occupied by small business owners selling their goods, and the remaining was dedicated to food stalls. There was a small stage in the lounging area with no performer inside. The music gigs, it turned out, would happen later in the evening when there were more than 20 people present at the venue. Gaurav paused at a second-hand bookstall before we could reach the ice cream vendor. He picked up book after book, explaining some of their core social themes to me. I pretended to listen honestly for the first few minutes, but when he began spouting gyan on a copy of Jan Eyre, I realized just how full of shit he really was. Have you read it? He asked. When I nodded, he launched into his analysis of the classic text by Charlotte Bronte. People keep hailing it a proto feminist novel, but that's nonsense. Jan eventually marries the same rich guy who tries to enslave her as his mistress, he said, waving the second-hand book in front of my face. That's pretty simplistic view of deeply layered text, the complex characters, I said, disagreeing with him for the first time. Growing up, Jane Eyre was one of my favorite classics. I had read it at least a dozen of times, and it annoyed me that Gaurav was trying to discredit it so unsympathetically. My comment took him by surprise, making it clear he had not expected me to counter complex characters. Come on, Jane is an orphaned governess who falls in love with boarding rich dude, pretends to assert her independence for a while, but eventually comes back to submit as his wife, he scoffed. From the corner of my eye, I noticed that the owner of the bookshelf was eyeing us from where he sat behind the counter. I wondered if he shared my date's pseudo-liberal views, submit as his wife. Miss Rochester is disabled by the end of the story. If anything, he is dependent on her, I pointed out. Also, and so she is going to spend the rest of her life serving him. How is that a win for feminism? He demanded. You are missing the whole point. She chooses to marry him and she chooses to care for him. Being financially independent, she is no longer bound by her circumstances. She marries the rich bounding dude for love, and she has every right to do, I said, crossing my arms to face my date. Instead of acknowledging that there might be some merit in what I was saying, he wrote it. Where did you read that? Sparknotes.com? When I just stared at him, he immediately changed his tone. I wondered if he regretted his snarky comment because of the diminishing chances of him getting any action on this date. To move on, he began mansplaining a different novel. I glanced at my phone, praying for an emergency call to rescue me from this headache of a date. After about 7.5 minutes, the man handing the store could not take it anymore. Will you be buying that one then? He asked, pointing to the copy of Crime and Punishment in Gaurav's hand. Oh, I have already read it, he responds, holding out the book uncertainly. I thanked the man for his time and placed the book back on the table. Gaurav's intellectual narcissism did not surprise me as much as it irritated me. Virinda, who had gone to the University of Delhi for college, used to complain about her encounters with such men. Now more than ever, I sympathized with her. As we walked off the bookstall and later, the fair one thing became abundantly clear. Gaurav was not the one. Fortunately, I had one more date lined up to take another slot at love, and I had served the best for the last. Varun, the theatre enthusiast. But as luck would have it, I got stuck in a traffic jam while trying to cover the short distance between JLN Stadium and the venue of the play. When my cab finally pulled up outside the theatre, I saw a man restlessly passing outside. It was Varun. Hey, I said as I ran up to him. I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic was mad. He smiled when he saw me, but the frown lines on his forehead did not disappear. He gave me a non-committal side hug. Well, the play began 20 minutes ago. They won't let us in now, he said, his disappointment clear as day. I wondered if he was trying to make me feel guilty. Oh shit, Varun, that sucks, I said. Should we just head for an early dinner then? Wow, he said, his voice stone cold. I already apologized. Man. I obviously did not mean to be late, I said, a little ached by his intolerance. It was just a stupid play after all. That's not it, he said. You don't even remember my name. And without without another word, he walked away, leaving me standing outside the theatre to unscramble my fuck up. I had to open Tinder to figure it out. Varun was the name of the guy I would have brunch with. The man I had just unknowingly scorned was Vivan. Well said. Relatives in India have a superpower. They can always tell when you are having a shitty day and know exactly how to make it worse by showing up at your doorstep, unexpected and uninvited. Now, before I am labeled as too modern to appreciate her own family, let me clarify. I love my family. I adore my grandparents. I enjoy the company of my aunts and uncles, and I even share a close relationship with most of my NRI cousins. The people I cannot stand are the distant kinsfolk who call once a year, show up once in 3, always loaded with some same questions. So when are you getting married? When I rang the bell to my home, I expected to see the comforting face of my mother. I hoped she would make me a nice cup of honey lemon ginger tea to take to my room, where I would spend the rest of the evening uninterrupted. But waited for me on the other side of the door was a person I recognized only because of my inability to identify her. She was Mehman, a Chachi ji, perhaps even a Mausa ji or Tai ji. Who knew? She enveloped me in a brutal hug, crushing me with the muscles she would build by encroaching on innocent children's personal space over the years. Ananya beta, she said, pulling back to look at my face. Look at you. Namaste, auntie, I said, failing to read my mother's lips from behind her. Auntie, she said, as a look of vacant hurt covered her features. My mom stepped forward, saving me from the beast. This is your Mathura wali Taiji beta, she said, then turned to me, woman, and added, she keeps so busy with work these days. I worry she will forget her own mother. The two of them laughed, giving me the opportunity to slip past them. I nodded at my dad, who was sitting on the sofa with man I assumed was my Mathura wale Taiji, looking so uncomfortable he might as well have been constipated. His expression was loud and clear. Run while you can. I spun around, ready to leap in the direction of my room. Beta ji, come and take a look of the card. Taiji's shrill voice made my escape impossible. What card? I asked, slowly turning around to face her. She laughed, as if I had asked the silliest question in the world. Harshita's wedding card. What else? Don't ask me who Harshita was. I congratulated the woman for forcing a keen smile onto my face. It is your turn next. She blurted the customary line and directed the next statement at my mother. You should start looking. It's so hard to find decent boys these days. Gee, that's true. My mother's tone was sympathetic, but her eyes were nervously flitting from right to left. For a brief second, I truly felt for my poor mother, caught as she was between the values of two different generations. It was difficult for her to assert her own beliefs. Her parents had taught her that girl had to get married at the right age and run their husband's house. Her daughter had exposed her to the idea of a woman putting herself first in and outside of marriage. Her own life was a confusing mess of two opposing schools of thought. My dad and she had met in college and had been friends long enough to decide that they should get married. Their relationship was built on that friendship, but it was still not an equal partnership. Sarita, can you get a drink for Bhai Sahib and me? My dad called out. Mom hurried away into the kitchen, happy to run away any and all errands that would save her from uncomfortable conversation. Unfortunately for me, that meant Taiji undivided attention was on me. So, a pretty girl like you must have a boyfriend, she whispered, nudging me in the ribs. As you may have gathered, this was a bit of a sore point of me. I did not care of a random auntie's judgment about the lack of romance in my life, especially today. No, auntie, I said as I fake laughed and shook my head. Taiji, she corrected before continuing with her interrogation. You don't have to hide it from me. I'll convince your parents. I am very pro love marriages. I looked at her for a few seconds before answering. I had no doubt she would go back home to her circle of good for not aunties and talk shit about me, so I decided I might as well give them some real juice. Okay, I said, signing. There is someone, but it won't work. It won't work out. Why, beta? She asked, her eyes glitting in anticipation in fresh gossip. His family does not approve us, I said, glancing down at my feet. She squeezed my arm tightly, taking a step closer to me. They will come around. You just need to talk to them sincerely. We tried, but his wife refused to listen, I said. Try harder, beta. This is your life. She stopped mid-sentence as it hit her. I burst out laughing as her face contorted with an annoyance and hints of anger. My mother appeared at my side just then and began dragging me away, saying, Don't mind her. She's got a strange sense of humor. I had the brief satisfaction of watching Taiji struggling to regain her composure before my mom shoved me inside my room. What did you have to do that for? She demanded. I knew she was not mad at me. I shrugged and said, It was the quickest and most fun way to get away from her. She wagged my arm with her hand, but there was a hint of a smile on her face. You will get me in a trouble someday. And with that, she left my room, shutting the door tightly behind her. I did a trust fall onto my bed, bouncing a few times before sneaking into the thick spring mattress. I was exhausted, and while the sort of exchange with my relative had lifted my spirits for a moment, I felt disheartened by the events of the day. I looked around, wondering if Mary Konda in my teenage room would offer me some solace. I spent 2 years away when I was in Bangalore for my post-graduation. That's where I would met my ex, who was a senior at the time. The first time I had seen him, he was playing the guitar in the college cafeteria, just jamming with his cool gang of musicians. Looking back, the thing I hated the most was the most important relationship of my life had been a complete glitch. A naive girl falls for a manipulative but charming musician, gets her heart broken, and is never the same again. What a shame. When I got back to Delhi from Bangalore, I decided to erase those 2 years from my life. I slowly distanced myself from all the friends I had made in college, the ones I had in common with him. I slipped back into my old routine, old friends, and old room. I would thought about redecorating quite a few times, but I always found a reason not to. Today, for example, I was simply too tired. I borrowed through my contact list, mindlessly scrolling through the names for someone who had one friend in total. I sure did know a lot of people without meaning to. I paused at one name instinctively. I clicked on it and typed out a message. What's the ETA for Mrs. Chauhan? He was online. I saw him typing for a few seconds before the screen went blank. I tossed the phone as far from me as possible, a wave of embarrassment washing over me. Why did I have to text and give him the upper hand? My loud groaning was interrupted by the sound of my phone ringing. I got up on all fours to retrieve it from the other end of the bed. The screen flashed his name. I paused for a second before hitting answer. Why are you calling me? I asked. Well, you texted me, he responded, unfazed by the greeting. So text back like a normal person. Text back and forth is so much work, he said. His voice was deep and elastic, like he was scratching in bed. I laughed at that and said, Gosh, you are really a very old. How old do you think I am? He asked. Mentally or biologically? I teased. Haha. He said flatly. I turned 30 in September. Jesus, I said. No wonder. No wonder what? He asked, and I imagined him crossing his arms defensively. The big 30 deadline is getting to you. That's why you are so eager to tie the knot. He chuckled and said, You have got me all figured out, haven't you? There was a pause. I rolled out in my side, clutching Mr. Crony to my chest. But seriously, what's the update on that front? I finally asked. Why would I give top secret intel to the enemy? He was still chuckling. It was your role, remember? Plus, I am offering you a barter with updates of my own. I said, letting down the competitive guard for a second. Before I added, I am no closer to finding a boyfriend than I was last week. Well, that sucks for you. I am actually meeting someone tomorrow. Someone I think I like, he said, and I could almost hear his annoying smile through the phone. Of course you will like her. Or whatever front she puts up in front of her entire life, I said, rolling my eyes into my pillow. I heard him gulping water. On the other hand, I am meeting her solo for lunch, he said. So it was like a date. Let me guess, you are taking her to fancy 5-star restaurant, hoping to impress her over an exorbitantly priced 7-course meal. He laughed at that, sounding genuinely amused. We are meeting at Cafe Bristol for a quick cup of coffee. Actually, although a 7-course meal does not sound good. A 7-course meal does sound good. Maybe I'll save that for the when I'm planning to propose. Cafe Bistro was a small, casual coffee shop in the boutique-heavy designer market of Sahapur Jat, a few lines over from V's store somehow. I could not imagine two strangers discussing the prospect of marrying each other in such an informal setting. So you have already decided you are going to propose her? I asked. I knew he was joking, but alarm bells began ringing in the back of my head. I could not lose this bet. Not this man. Not to this man, and certainly not this easily. I did not say that, he said, then added in a teasing tone. But who knows? Chapter 10. I spy with my little eye. When I had agreed to decorate V's new boutique, I had taken one thing into the consideration. Her mom, Kavita auntie, could be a bit of a witch. Pardon my French. We had occasionally complained about her bossiness over the years, but I think the respect and fear she carried for her mom prevented her from openly discussing the woman's she devil abilities with me, which meant I was entirely unprepared coming into this. This just won't do, Ananya. She was holding the pieces of fabric I had shortlisted for the couch. They are too patchy. Well, the idea was to use patchwork to bring out the nature of the customized service you offer, I said, trying again. She shook her head, moving the sample book aside. Why don't you give me another go? It had been a long day of sourcing, assembling, and facing rejection. The problem was not that V's mom did not like my ideas. It was that she did not like my ideas after I had put in the work. I doubted she would even read the emails I had sent her with reference links a few days ago. I could go check out that store in Sarojini Nagar for you, we offered with an apologetic look on her face. It was already 4 p.m. This side gig was turning out to be more exciting than my actual job. The idea of staying her alone with V's mother for a few more hours was terrifying. I would choose a crowded market and sweaty evening any day over it. Why don't you stay here and help auntie sort through the rest of the stuff? I'll make a quick trip to the market, I said, eager to get away. I hugged my friend, promising to back in a few hours with more fabric options. I would have fully intend to keep my word until I spotted a red Kia while walking away from the boutique in South Delhi's Sahapur Jat. I was fairly certain it was Adar's car, seeing as Cafe Bistro was just around the corner. Without intending to, I turned left and walked towards the entrance. To the point, it had glass windows that made it possible to see indoors, but the red and white awnings on the patio cast a shadow on the faces of those seated inside. Even though I knew it was a terrible idea, I could not stop myself from pushing open the main door. I didn't know what I was hoping to achieve from this, but a strange curiosity had gripped me. Was he going to be there with her? What was she like? I just had to know. I snuck inside, willing myself to be invisible. I was grateful for the pastel blue shirt dress I was wearing, which helped me blend in. Without wasting too much time walking around, I sat down at a corner table on the far end of the cafe. Then, hiding behind the wooden menu, I began my espionage. I did not spot them right away. They were seated 5 tables away from me, on the other side of the room, which was separated by the entrance door. He had his back to me, but I recognized his curls instantly. His frame was another giveaway. He was the tallest person in the room, but it was not him I would come to see him. The first thing I noticed about the girl was the way she ate her sandwich. She used a knife and a fork to slice it into teeny pieces and snuck each one into her mouth at regular intervals. I wondered if that was how she was always ate bread, or if it had something to do with the bright red lipstick she had on. She was a pretty girl. She looked young, perhaps 23 or 24, and from what I could tell, she was confident and cheery. She laughed more than a few times while I was sitting there watching them, making me wonder about what Adar was telling her. A waiter interrupted my little secret mission, asking for my order. "Just a water for now, please," I said dismissively. He stayed there for a few seconds, and I had to smile at him sweetly before he finally got the message and left me alone. Back at their table, Shruti had launched into a story of her own. Okay, I had no way of knowing if that was her name, but she looked like a Shruti to me. Her smile became broader as the story progressed, which I am not going to lie, so was stressful to watch. They looked like they were getting along, and that was definitely bad news. My phone rang just then, and I glanced down at it. It was Virinda. She must have assumed I had reached Sarojini Nagar market by now. I declined the call, hoping she would not think much of it. I could be bargaining with a shopkeeper. The call could wait. When I looked up from my phone, Adar's table was empty. Panicking, I glanced towards the door and caught a glimpse of Shruti's Daisy Sentence leaving the cafe. What had just happened? Had they left already? When did they pay the bill? I pushed my chair back to the get-up and followed them outside, only to come face to face with Adar himself. I had not seen him approaching me. He must have walked from behind the counter to get to me unnoticed. "Well, what the hell are you doing here?" he asked, placing one hand on his hip. "Hi," I said, sheepishly, tucking a stray hair behind my ear. "You are spying on me, are not you?" he asked. His suspicion spread across his clean-shaven face. Puff. I blew a puff of air, then said, "I was just in the neighborhood, helping out a friend with her boutique." "I see," he said and crossed his arms. "That still does not explain why are you at the cafe I told you I was going to be at." I cleared my throat, feeling my cheeks turn red. There was nothing I could say or do. I would been caught red-handed. Luckily for me, the waiter showed up again, this time to hand the bill to Adar. "Why did she leave like that?" I could not help but ask. Adar was silent as he retrieved a few 500 rupees notes from his wallet. After the waiter had left, he looked up at me with a curious expression. "So you were watching us," he said. I blushed again, but did not deny it. We walked out of the cafe together in silence. Outside, he pulled out a cigarette pack from his pocket and lighted on. We stood side by side on the patio, watching people walk up and down the street. She wanted me to meet her boyfriend and explain to him why she was marrying a stranger instead of him, he said as he exhaled the smoke, then added, "I said no." "What?" I exclaimed and burst into a peal of laughter. "Yeah," he said, shaking his head. "She said it was her boyfriend, not her ex." I had to clarify. "Yep. She is still very much dating him," he said, his face blank. I laughed some more, feeling a strange heaviness being lifted from my gut. I was not going to lose the bet, not today. "I had how much pleasure you are deriving from this," he said, keeping his gaze looked on the street away from mine. "This really is the highlight of the day," I said when the laughter had died down. He took a few more puffs from his cigarette before chucking it into the standing ashtray outside the cafe bistro. "You know, one of my dating disaster. It's only fair you tell me one of yours," he said, finally turning to face me. I am not sure if you should be calling this date, but sure, I said, shrugging innocently when he threw me a dirty look. I knew I did not have to, but I decided to narrate the story of my date with Ajay and Ajay, the grand gesture dude. Why? Other looked like he needed to a win, and for some reason, I wanted to oblige him. And sure enough, his spirits visually rose as I told him about all the silly, extravagant stunts my date had pulled. When I was done telling him about the capable group, Capella group, he was so stunned he could barely speak. Wow, he said, just wow. I know, some girls would die for shit like that, he said, trying to sound earnest, but I could sense a tinge of sarcasm in his tone. Well, they are more than welcome to have at him, I said, waving my hand in the air. He chuckled and asked me something. I did not quite register because I was busy looking at a BMW driving past us. To my horror, it stopped a few feet ahead of the cafe and out popped V. She shut the door behind her and began walking towards me. I realized I had 5 seconds to come with an airtight excuse for why I was not at Sarojini Nagar. It was far from enough. Annie, what? Are you back already? She asked from a distance. When I didn't answer right away, she continued to navigate through the pebbled path to reach me. Her orange-heeled sandals brought me some extra time. I tried calling you. Mom had to leave for some work, so we could have delayed the trip. She trailed off as she spotted the man standing next to me. For a few seconds, the two of them stared at each other, both trying to piece the puzzle in their heads. I know you. We met at the car launch. Adar took a step closer to me. We nodded lightly at him before turning her attention to me. What's going on? What's he doing here? I racked my brain for the right thing to say. I could not possibly tell her I would blown off sourcing of her mom's boutique to spy on others and his table. His date. That would not make any sense to her, especially since she did not know about the bet. And this was certainly not the right time to come clean about that. A warm breeze had started blowing, which was throwing my hair all over my face from behind. Vi, who stood against the direction of the wind, had her wavy locks dramatically flying away from her face. She waited for me to say something. My boss called a little while ago. I had to come back for the market for a meeting with Stellar Spirits, I said, pointing my thumb at Adar. Oh, we said, still spectacle. I fully expected Adar to rat me out. He had no reason to go along with my lie, especially since he had zero context about why I was telling it in the first place. I counted to 3 in my head, waiting for the miracle to happen. I think it's going to pour, Adar said, directing our attention from the awkward conversation to the rumbling thunder in the sky. As soon as I looked up, a fat droplet of water fell on my cheek. 2 seconds later, we were being ambushed to the car. We started gesturing towards our vehicle parked not too far away. The driver had already stepped out to retrieve the umbrella from the trunk, but I feared he would not make it in time to be of any help. I ran to the car and quickly got in, leaving the door open for my friend. But she was not behind me. I peeped out to find her, struggling to walk on the pebbles, hand in hand with Adar, who was trying to help her get to the car. By the time both of them ducked in, Adar and they were drenched. They were also giggling, sitting there on one end of the back seat, looking at two attractive, tall and fresh out of the rain people. I felt like a third wheel in ticklish romantic sense. Don't be stupid. We has boyfriend, I reminded myself, and this is Adhar, for God's sake. Who cares? I know you from somewhere. I'm sure of it, Adhar was saying while he was studying we intently as the driver got into the front seat. The car launched, like you just said, I offered. But neither of them was paying any attention to me. I followed you on Instagram a few days ago, we said, and I felt a wave of panic rising in my throat. Oh my god, we was going to tell him about how I would stalked him on social media, and after he would caught me keeping tabs on him today, he would definitely think I was creep, a major one. Why was he doing this to me? The sound of her betrayal had stunned me into silence. I wanted to see who my best friend was being forced to marry. She said, I had not realized I would stop breathing until she said those words. Forced to marry? Forced to marry? Adar threw his head back and laughed, and then added, after he had regained his composure, so you guys are best friends, huh? Yep, since school, she said, leaning back into the leather seat so I could finally feel like a part of the conversation. There was a loud honk from behind us. The driver turned his head to ask us where we wanted to go. My car is just around the corner. I'll walk. Adar said. Don't be stupid. We will drop you, we said, instructing the driver to turn the car around. The street was too narrow for a U-turn, so we had to drive around the block to get to his car. The two of them chatted throughout the short journey, and I sank deeper and deeper into my seat as the conversation went on without me. By the time we pulled up in front of his red Kia, it had stopped raining. Well, it was nice to meet you, Virinda. Adhar went down to say after he had stepped out of the car. Same here. We responded, giving him a bright, warm smile. And you? He said, directing his gaze towards me for a microsecond. Me? With that, he waved a dismissive hand in my direction, straightened up, and banged the door shut. My jaw almost dropped to the floor in indication. Oh boy, it looks could kill me, we said when she turned to face me. I hate that guy, I muttered bitterly. I don't know, I thought he was sweet, she said. Of course you did, I mumbled under my breath as the engine roared to life. I put on my earphones and pretended to sleep for the duration of our journey home. I would have taken the metro back to mine instead of letting a driver drop me, but I did not want to weak to think I was mad at her, because I was not. It just that sometimes I felt little bit jealous. I loved her to that to death, and I did not wish any hardship on her of any kind, but sometimes I felt like life was too easy on her. We was beautiful, rich, ambitious, talented, had a long-term boyfriend who loved her and always got along with people. Every single person she met adored her. She was perfect, and my own imperfection stood out loud and clear next to her. Take today, for example, the guy who had been a royal pain in my ass for the last few weeks had met her, and she had managed to bring out of the best in him. I may have actually liked him if I had met this version of him before. But no, the guy with the nice to meet yours was reserved for incredible girls like my best friend. All I got was मैं. सो गाइस, यहाँ पे हमारा ये 2 चैप्टर खत्म होता है. मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग एंड डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक एंड कमेंट योर फेवरेट बुक. थैंक्स.